This is an analysis of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. We're going to start by talking about the poem's rhyme scheme and meter. So this poem is written in trochaic octameter, which is a very rarely used set of meters. So basically what that means is in each line you have 8 trochaic feet. And it goes a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. Okay, so 8 feet of a stressed followed by an unstressed. It's more commonly to use an unstressed stressed. So this is very rare for the stress to be on the first syllable, but there are 8 feet of 2 syllables in each line. Stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. So you have once is your stress, once up, on a, midnight, dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. Okay, so I know that sounds really strange to say it that way. You have 8 of those in 8 sets of those syllables in every single line. Okay, you have internal rhymes within the line. So you have internal rhymes within each set of lines, I guess I should say. So you have here dreary, which rhymes with the end rhyme weary, napping, and tapping in each of your quatrains. And then the rhyme scheme itself goes, we're going to assign the eerie sound A, B for lore, it's a different rhyme sound. Tapping is different from the other two, so that's A, B, C. Then we have door, and more. So that rhymes with that rhyme sound lore. So it goes A, B, C, B, B, B. Okay, A, B, C, B, B, B. Over and over and over again, every single quatrain. All right. The most notable sound is the or sound. Obviously, it hits a lot more frequently than the other rhyme sounds. So you've got that or all the way through. Floor, Lenore, more. Okay, before, on and on and on throughout the poem. So let's talk about the word choice next. So you have diction, which is actually the word choice itself. And then you have the word order, which is syntax. Okay, and those two things help us with an image, with our imagery, and they help us establish what the tone is. Okay, so it's midnight, it's dreary, it's dark. He has a mysterious knock on his door. We are unclear throughout is if he was dreaming or if he was awake and something was happening to him. Now, Poe was known for being an opiate addict, so this could have been an opiate fugue kind of thing, if he is his own narrator here. So it's unclear if he's awake or if he's dreaming. So the poem is framed as a memory. He's looking back. We see this in stanza 2. I remember it was in the bleak December. So he's looking back at these events, but they continue clearly to haunt him now. Okay, so in this stanza as well, we get a glimpse of the bleak mood that continues throughout the poem. It starts with bleak, then we have a ghost, we have sorrow, we have dying ember. All throughout the poem, there are going to be triggers to help us continue that bleak mood throughout the poem. Okay, so if you read all the way through, you know that his beloved is dead. she is no more. And he wishes that the night would pass so that the day would come back and he could escape this sorrow that sinks in on him at night. There's a lot of alliteration, which is the repetition of consonant sounds. You have consonants, which is the repetition of vowel sounds. There's rhymes, repetition itself. You have personification. The raven itself has the ability to speak. It has facial expressions. The tone is dark and gloomy. We talked about the word choice kind of helping us see that throughout the poem. The narrator is lost in his grief, so much so that he is having trouble distinguishing between what is real and what is fantasy. So therefore, we could say that he's semi-reliable. He's not sane, technically, but he's not insane either. He's grieving, and grief does different things to different people. His first person perspective. So he tells the events as they're happening, but everything that he talks about is heavily tainted by the loss of his Lenore. He uses the word nevermore 11 times in the poem. Okay, that's significant. Nevermore 11 times. Nevermore means never again. He will never see Lenore again, and he will never be able to let her go again. Like it's his new reality. So the raven itself was chosen for its connotation. If you think about birds that have are bad omens, are ill omens, the raven, which I think all birds are bad omens. I hate birds, but the raven itself, if you think about it, you've got a black bird who has black eyes, a black beak, black feet. He is completely black, shrouded in the color black, which we associate with darkness and death. He calls. I don't know if you've ever heard a raven call, but it's very eerie. The call itself is a very eerie sound. You've got Lenore, which is Greek for pity, and Arabic for God is my light. That's just something random, kind of off the cuff, but her very name is ambiguous. It's Greek for pity, Arabic for God is my light, which he speaks about her, the rare and radiant maiden, the angels, have her, and God is my light. But she also represents such a hole here in the blackness that is his suffering, because she is no longer around. So there's the theme of internalization of pain and suffering. He's internalizing clearly to the point of the fact that he is actually seeing a raven sitting above his door, repeating over and over nevermore, reminding him of his grief that he will never see Lenore again. So if I were to ask you how Poe's diction and syntax in The Raven reflect that theme of internalization of pain and suffering, breaking down the poem, word choice, the word choices, you would have lots that you could discuss. The word nevermore, never again, I'm never going to see her again, I'm never going to be able to let her go. You have the repetition of those sounds over and over and over again. You can't let it go, can't leave it alone. The word choice that help continue that bleak mood, his pain, when he talks about bleak and dying ember and sorrow and his loss over and over and over again throughout the poem. Darkness, all the way through. His syntax, how those internal rhymes, how those rhymes at the end of lines are the rhyme scheme, with the most noticeable sound being the rhyme of or throughout. How does the word structure and his repetition of certain words, how does that kind of reflect that internalization of his pain and his sorrow? You have those dreary and weary, and it's almost as if he's so lost in his grief he can't break out of the cycle, and knows that he knows he's not going to be able to let it go. And we know that because the very last part of the poem, as he is getting more and more upset and over the top, he's screaming at the bird at one point in time, and he tells him to leave my loneliness unbroken, take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door, be gone with you. And the raven says, nevermore. And so he's shouting at the raven and telling him to leave, and the raven says, I'm never leaving. And remember that this is a memory, so he's thinking back on this time. And that last stanza, and the raven never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the door shall be lifted never more. It's never going to end, this sorrow that he has over the loss of his wife, and he can't let it go because the raven won't let him go. He's there to continually remind him of his pain and his sorrow. So hopefully you will be able to articulate that in writing for your first CTE in poetry, talking about how the word choice and the word order in the raven really helps solidify that theme of pain and suffering that the speaker is feeling.